Hey there, and welcome to a deep dive on creating your perfect backyard oasis. We're so excited to dig into this with you because, wow, these plans you sent over are amazing. You're really ready to transform your outdoor space.
I know, right? Those photos you included, especially of the patio area, huge potential there.
Absolutely. So let's get into it because we all know a beautiful garden, it's about more than just like throwing some plants together and hoping for the best.
It's true.
We're talking cohesive design, people, the works. So from a design pro's standpoint, where do we even begin?
Well, think of it like building a house, right?
Yeah.
You don't just start slapping on walls. You need a solid foundation. And in garden design, that foundation is the layout.
Okay, so less about the plan everything I love and see what happens approach.
Gotcha. Exactly. A good layout, it's like the backbone of your garden. It provides structure and it guides the flow. And we're talking both visually and physically, like how you actually move through the space.
So using my patio as an example, because right now it's kind of just there.
Well, you're already one step ahead because your patio is perfectly positioned. Honestly, it's like it's just meant to be the heart of this whole garden. Imagine this, a pathway, maybe using those amazing reclaimed bricks you mentioned, leading you from the patio to other areas of the yard.
Ooh, okay, I like where you're going with this.
It's all about creating a sense of purpose, you know? Like you're being guided through the space, not just wandering around aimlessly. That's what makes a good layout so impactful.
That makes so much sense. But I gotta ask, how does the size of the garden play into all of this? Because my yard, well, it's on the cozier side.
Yeah, space is definitely a key factor to consider. But don't worry, small gardens can be just as impactful as their larger counterparts. It's all about being smart with your design choices.
So, like, no more cramming in every plant I can get my hands on.
Maybe a little less of that. With a smaller space, it's all about maximizing what you've got. Vertical gardening, your new best friend. Think wall-mounted planters, maybe overflowing with herbs right outside your kitchen door. Or a trellis with some gorgeous fragrant climbers to add heightened privacy.
So even a small space can have a big impact. I love it. But what about those lucky folks with more space to play with? Do those same principles apply?
Absolutely. In a larger garden, the challenge often isn't so much about maximizing space, but rather creating a sense of unity across a wider expanse. And that, my friend, is where repetition becomes key.
Repetition. Okay, tell me more.
Remember those lavender plants you loved in the photos you sent?
Oh yeah, those are gorgeous.
Picture this. Those lavenders lining the pathway we talked about earlier, A and D gracing a flower bed on the opposite side of the yard. It creates this visual rhythm, you see. It connects the different areas, and suddenly the whole space feels bigger than it actually is.
So you're saying repeat elements throughout to make it feel more cohesive? Kind of like echoing a color or a material throughout your house, but with plants.
Exactly. You got it. And just like inside your house, you want to think about how you'll actually use your outdoor space. That's where, you guessed it, functional zoning comes in.
Okay, so like my dream of having a veggie garden that's actually productive, a relaxing patio space where I can actually relax, not too much to ask, right?
Not at all. We can definitely make that happen. Remember those zones we talked about with the layout? Think of them like rooms in your house,
Yeah.
right? Each one has a purpose, but they all flow together. So we could create a dedicated gardening zone, maybe tuck it away behind that cool stone wall you've got back there, and then keep the patio as the main entertainment area.
I am loving how you're already like seeing my yard in your head. This is amazing. So how do we blend these zones together? I don't want my tomato plants staging a hostile takeover of my patio furniture or anything.
I hear you. Natural transitions are key. What if, and just hear me out here, we used a trellis, right? With some climbing roses to create a visual and physical separation between the patio and the veggie garden. It'll add some privacy without feeling too jarring.
Ooh, okay, I like it. Speaking of plants, they're not just pretty faces in this whole cohesive design scheme, right?
Ding, ding, ding. We've got a winner. It's just like choosing furniture for your house. You want pieces that complement each other and the overall style. Grouping plants with similar characteristics, whether it's color, texture, even the way they move in the wind, that can make a world of difference.
So no more impulse buying plants just because they look pretty at the nursery.
Maybe just a few less impulse buys. Think about that cottage garden vibe you love. Imagine overflowing flower beds, a mix of textures and heights, maybe some feathery Russian sage, fragrant lavender, and some classic roses for good measure.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. But wouldn't that be a little much if everything looked exactly the same?
That's where our friend the focal point comes in, to add some visual excitement and break up the monotony.
Ooh, focal points. I'm all about a good statement piece. Hit me with your best shot. Fountains, sculptures, you name it.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Focal points are like plants. Quality over quantity, my friend. We don't want to overwhelm the space.
Right, right. Too much of a good thing.
Exactly. Remember that amazing old oak tree in the back of your yard? We could play that up, add some strategically placed lighting, and boom, instant breathtaking focal point that draws the eye and creates a sense of destination.
My childhood climbing tree turned into a work of art. I am here for it. It's amazing how you're taking what's already there and making it shine. We've talked a lot about creating a cohesive feel within the garden itself. But shouldn't it also, I don't know, connect with the house too? I don't want my outdoor oasis feeling totally disconnected from everything else.
It's true. It's like forgetting to add those finishing touches to a room,
Yeah.
pillows, blankets, that sort of thing. We want that same seamless flow between the inside and the outside.
Exactly. And you know what? Based on the photos you shared, I think we have a real opportunity here. Your home has that classic farmhouse look, the white siding, those dark window frames. We can totally play with that.
So using similar colors and materials, like for planters and furniture, that kind of thing, you got it. Imagine some planters in that weathered wood finish to match the porch railing. Or a pergola, maybe clean lines, white paint. It'll echo the architecture of your home. Little details, big impact.
This is all making so much sense. But okay, with all these elements, how do I keep it from becoming too much? Like visual overload.
Here's the thing. A truly harmonious garden, it's like a symphony.
Okay, I love this analogy.
Each element plays its part, from the layout, that's like the grand structure, down to the tiniest detail, like the texture of a single leaf. And just like in music, harmony doesn't equal sameness. It's about balance, contrasts that work, and ultimately your own unique style shining through.
So less paint by numbers, more impressionist masterpiece. I can dig it. Honestly, this deep dive has been a game changer. We covered so much. Cohesive layouts, functional zones, plants, focal points, even making sure the garden feels connected to the house.
And the best part,
Yeah.
you've got everything you need to get started. Remember that amazing mood board you put together? With all those gorgeous garden photos, that's your jumping off point.
Wait, my late night Pinterest spirals are actually useful. Who would have thought?
Absolutely. They capture the feeling you want to create in your garden. And that, my friend, is the most important thing. As you start designing, let that feeling be your compass. Ask yourself, what kind of atmosphere do I want here? Peaceful and reflective. Somewhere lively to entertain. Or maybe a bit of both.
So it's not just about what it looks like, but how it feels. Mind blown.
Exactly. A garden, it's more than just plants. It's an extension of your home, of you. So as you dive into creating this outdoor oasis, let your heart lead the way. Trust your instincts, have fun, and don't be afraid to try things out.
All right. Backyards. Let's dive in. Not those picture-perfect ones you see in magazines, right? We're talking about the ones we actually live in.
Exactly, the ones that actually reflect our lives.
Yeah. And, judging by what you sent over, it seems like you're ready to take yours to the next level, make it truly functional.
It's interesting you say that. We see that a lot in the sources, this shift from just having a backyard to actually designing an outdoor living space.
It's like, instead of just a patio set, you're thinking about how you actually want to use the space.
Exactly. It's not just an afterthought anymore.
Mhm.
And one of the biggest takeaways, this idea of zoning.
Zoning, like assigning different areas for different things.
Right. It's all about being intentional. Just
That's-
like you wouldn't have your bed in the kitchen.
Well, some studio apartments might disagree.
Okay, fair point. But you get the idea.
Yeah.
So instead of just plopping a grill down randomly, you're thinking grilling zone, dining zone, maybe even a relaxation zone.
I like where this is going. So how do these zones usually break down?
Well, almost all the sources started with seating and relaxation.
Yeah.
And the key takeaway here, it's not just about throwing down a lawn chair.
Yeah, comfort is key, especially if you want to spend any real time out there.
Exactly. They were really big on creating those inviting spaces. So think comfy outdoor furniture, cushions, maybe even a pergola for a little shade. Some even mentioned using outdoor curtains.
Pergola with curtains. Now that's my kind of outdoor living. But what about those of us working with, shall we say, cozier backyards?
That's where the beauty of zoning really comes in. It's all about adapting to your space.
Mm-hmm.
So smaller gardens might call for a bistro set instead of a full dining table.
Right. Work with what you've got.
Exactly. And think about where things are placed. No one wants to be running back and forth to the kitchen all night.
Especially if you're carrying a plate piled high with barbecue. Speaking of which, did anyone mention outdoor kitchens?
Oh yeah, that's where things get really fun. Built-in grills, pizza ovens, the whole 9 yards. It's like bringing the indoors out.
I can practically smell the pizza now. But let's be real, not everyone has room for every single zone.
And that's okay. That's where you get creative. Maybe your dining zone doubles as a yoga space during the day, or that quiet corner becomes a mini herb garden.
It's about making it work for you. Love it. But now that we've got these zones mapped out, comes the fun part. Furniture.
Right. And I don't know about you, but I get overwhelmed just thinking about outdoor furniture shopping.
So many choices. Where do you even start?
The sources were pretty clear. Material is key.
So we're not just picking the prettiest chairs anymore.
Nope. You want something that can actually withstand the elements. Teak was a big one.
Ah, teak. Durable and stylish. Classic choice.
And for good reason. It's incredibly weather resistant. But for a lighter look, they also mentioned wicker.
Oh, wicker. It's got that relaxed, breezy vibe.
Exactly. And of course, you can't go wrong with metal. It's durable. You can get it in practically any color. It's a solid choice.
There's that decision fatigue setting in again. Too many good options. But what about those multifunctional pieces we talked about earlier?
Ah, yes. Those are game changers, especially for smaller spaces. Think benches with built-in storage, foldable chairs, anything that can pull double duty.
It's like those ingenious furniture designs they have in tiny houses.
Exactly. And even with the perfect furniture, placement is key. You want to consider the flow of the space.
So it's not just about what looks good in the store display.
Right. Think about the view from your seating area. Are you going to bake in the afternoon sun? Is it easy to get to from the house? Those are all things to consider.
It's like you're choreographing how you're going to move through your own backyard. And speaking of things we need to choreograph around, weather. Even the best laid backyard plans can get rained out.
And that's where those sources really stress planning for the elements.
So we're talking shade solutions, rain covers, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Pergolas with climbing plants were a favorite. Beautiful and functional.
They really do check all the boxes, don't they?
And when it came to rain protection, they were all about protecting your investment. So, water-resistant cushions, furniture covers, even a covered patio if you really want to extend the season.
It's like giving your backyard its own little weather force field. Now, what about those pathways that connect it all? They always seem to get overlooked.
You're right, they are important. Not just how they look, but how sturdy they are. Especially if you're entertaining or have kids running around.
Safety first. So forget the whimsically placed stepping stones.
Well, those can be cute. But they did recommend durable materials. Pavers, flagstone, even gravel.
Ah, something you can actually walk on without worrying about twisting an ankle. Good to know. Now, as much as I love a sunny afternoon in the backyard, there's something magical about a backyard that sparkles at night.
Oh, absolutely. Lighting can make all the difference.
So we're not just talking about your average porch light here.
Definitely not. They broke down outdoor lighting into 3 main types: ambient, task, and accent. Each creates a totally different mood.
Okay, I'm listening. Tell me more about this ambient lighting.
Ambient lighting is all about warmth, creating that inviting atmosphere. Think string lights, lanterns, that soft glow that makes everything feel magical.
Oh, I love that. It's like bottling up firefly light. Magical is the perfect word.
And then you've got task lighting. This is your more practical stuff. Think spotlights over the grill area so you can actually see what you're doing. Maybe some path lights for safety.
Form and function. Gotta have both. Now, what was that last one? Accent lighting.
Ah, yes. This is where you get to play a bit. Use spotlights to highlight your favorite plants or sculpture. It adds a whole other dimension to your backyard at night.
It's like your backyard is putting on a show after dark. Love it. But with all this talk about lighting and features and furniture, we gotta talk sustainability, right?
Absolutely. And the best part, sustainable choices often end up saving you money in the long run. It's a win-win.
Saving the planet and our wallets. I'm all ears. What did the sources suggest?
They focus on 3 main areas: water conservation, energy efficiency, and low-maintenance materials.
Makes sense. Let's start with water conservation. Any big takeaways there?
Drought-tolerant plants were huge. They need less water, less maintenance. It just makes sense.
So maybe swap out those thirsty hydrangeas for something a little more drought-friendly. Good to know. What about that second one, energy efficiency?
Solar lights, they were all over those. Practical, they look great, and they're using that free energy from the sun.
Can't argue with that. What about those low-maintenance materials? I'll admit, low maintenance sounds pretty appealing.
Right. Less work, more enjoyment. They highlighted things like composite decking. It's durable, weather-resistant, and it doesn't require all the upkeep of traditional wood.
No more splinters. I'm sold. And I imagine that same principle applies to things like cushions and outdoor fabrics.
Absolutely. Choose durable, weather-resistant fabrics, and you're not replacing them every season.
So we're creating a backyard oasis that's not just beautiful and functional, but also good for the planet.
Exactly. It's about making mindful choices that benefit everyone.
It's amazing how much there is to consider when it comes to designing a functional backyard. We've covered so much ground, from zoning and choosing the right materials to thinking about lighting and sustainability.
It's a lot to digest, but it's all part of creating a space that truly reflects you.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Creating a backyard that feels like an extension of your home. A place where you can relax, recharge, and connect with nature.
Exactly. And with a little planning and inspiration, that dream backyard is well within reach.
It really makes you think about all those little details that can make such a big difference.
Absolutely. And, one detail those sources kept coming back to was privacy.
Privacy. Especially if you actually want to relax without feeling like your neighbors are watching your every move.
Exactly.
Yeah,
They had some great tips for creating privacy without making your backyard feel like a fortress.
I'm all ears. Fences are the obvious solution, but I'm guessing they had some more creative ideas.
They did. Hedges were a big one.
Oh, hedges. They add so much charm, don't they? Very classic.
And practical. They create a natural barrier. They can even muffle sound a bit.
It's like your own little green sound wall. I like it. What else?
Well, they talked about using trees and shrubs strategically.
So it's like you're creating these little rooms within your backyard using plants as walls.
Exactly. And they don't block everything out, so you still get that nice sense of openness.
It's about creating a balance, right? Pricey without feeling completely closed off.
Exactly. And then, of course, there are always pergolas. They can act as a kind of visual screen, especially with climbing plants growing over them.
Oh, and they add that vertical element. I love a good pergola. But for something a little less permanent, they suggested outdoor curtains. Oh, outdoor curtains, that's a great idea. Easy to adjust, you can change them out with the seasons.
Exactly. It's all about those little touches that make a big impact. Now, speaking of big impact, did you have any water features in mind for your dream backyard?
Water features. I love the idea, but honestly, I always thought they'd be a pain to maintain.
It's a common concern, for sure, but the sources actually addressed that.
Oh, good. So, what's the secret to low-maintenance water features? Asking for a friend.
It starts with choosing the right type for your space. They mentioned small fountains or bubbling rocks as being pretty easy to manage.
So we're not talking about installing a full-blown waterfall and pond ecosystem in our backyard.
Well, hey, if you've got the space and the dedication, go for it. But for most of us, starting smaller is probably the way to go.
Smaller and simpler, I can get behind that. It's about finding that balance, right? Big impact without the big headache.
Exactly. Even the sound of gently trickling water can make a huge difference.
It's true. It's amazing how just the sound of water can be so calming.
It's like instant zen. And speaking of engaging the senses, did you know that they even talked about incorporating scent into backyard design?
Scent, that's interesting. I hadn't even considered that.
Right. But it makes sense. Certain scents can totally change the mood of a space.
So what, like strategically placed air fresheners?
Not quite. Think fragrant plants.
Oh, like jasmine or lavender.
Exactly. Imagine catching a whiff of that while you're relaxing in your backyard.
It's like your backyard has its own signature scent. I love that idea. What about touch? Did they talk about that sense at all?
They did. They suggested incorporating different textures into your backyard design.
So we're talking smooth stones, rough-hewn wood, maybe even a patch of soft grass to sink your toes into.
You got it. It's about creating a multi-sensory experience.
I'm all about that. Makes it feel so much more immersive. Now, speaking of things that can elevate your backyard, they mentioned focal points, right?
Oh, yes. Focal points are key. They really ground a space, give the eye something to focus on.
So we're talking like a stunning piece of sculpture, or maybe a fire pit.
Those are great examples, but it doesn't have to be anything that elaborate. A beautifully shaped tree can be a focal point. Even a hammock, strategically placed, can do the trick.
It's about creating that wow moment, that thing that catches your eye when you step outside.
Exactly. And you can use lighting to highlight it even more at night. Imagine a spotlight on that beautiful tree in your backyard. Just magical.
It really does add that extra layer of magic, doesn't it? Okay, shifting gears a bit here. We've talked about all these amazing features, but what about the actual act of spending time in the backyard after the sun goes down?
You're talking about lighting. It's essential for extending those warm summer nights.
Because no one wants to be fumbling around in the dark. Right. Although I do appreciate a good stargazing session every now and then.
Don't worry, we'll get to those. But the sources did make a good point about balancing those moments of darkness with well-placed lighting.
So it's not just about flooding the backyard with light.
Not at all. It's about creating a mood. Remember those 3 types of lighting we talked about earlier?
Ambient, task, and accent.
Exactly. They each play a role in creating a balanced and functional outdoor space at night.
All right, refresh my memory. Ambient lighting. That was the mood lighting, right?
Right. Your string lights, lanterns, they create that warm, inviting glow, perfect for dining or just relaxing with friends.
It's like those fancy restaurants that dim the lights to create atmosphere.
Exactly. Now, task lighting is more about practicality.
So if I'm trying to grill a steak after dark, I'm gonna need some good task lighting.
Exactly. Think spotlights over the grill, maybe some path lights to illuminate those walkways.
Safety first. And accent lighting, that was the one for adding a little drama.
That's the one. Highlighted tree, a sculpture. It adds a whole other dimension to your backyard at night.
I love it. But with all this talk about lights and features and making things look amazing, we can't forget about the more practical side of things, right?
Absolutely not. A cluttered backyard is a recipe for stress, and no one wants that.
It's like that junk drawer in your kitchen, but on a much larger scale.
Oh, the dreaded junk drawer. The sources actually had some good tips for keeping things organized.
Okay, I need all the tips I can get. Lay 'em on me.
Vertical space is your friend. They were big on that.
So shelves, hooks, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Get things up off the ground. And invest in some weatherproof storage containers.
To wrangle all those cushions and gardening tools.
Precisely. And don't forget about those bins for trash and recycling.
Yeah, the unsung heroes of a tidy backyard. Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. It's amazing how much calmer a space feels when it's organized.
It's true. And a calm, organized backyard means more time to actually enjoy it, which is the whole point, right?
Exactly. And speaking of enjoying it, let's talk about inviting some more guests to the party.
Guests. Should I put on a pot of coffee?
Even better than that, I'm talking about wildlife.
Ugh, wildlife, I love that. It's like creating your own mini ecosystem right in your backyard.
Exactly. And the sources had some great advice for turning your backyard into a haven for critters.
Okay, tell me everything. How do we get this party started?
Native plants are key.
Native plants. Because they provide the food and shelter those local critters are used to.
Exactly. They also suggested planting a variety of things that bloom at different times.
So it's like a year-round buffet for our little buddies. Love it. What else?
Water sources are crucial. Bird baths, a shallow dish, even a small pond if you're feeling ambitious.
Okay, but what about mosquitoes? I don't want my backyard turning into a breeding ground.
Valid concern. They suggested changing the water frequently to prevent that. A little maintenance goes a long way.
Good to know. So we've got food, we've got water. What about shelter?
Leaving some areas a little wild can help with that.
Wild? How? We're talking about unleashing a pack of squirrels.
Think piles of leaves, branches, maybe some rocks. It creates those little nooks and crannies where critters can hide out.
Makes sense, like giving them their own little backyard apartments.
Exactly. And if you want to get really fancy, they mentioned birdhouses, bat boxes, even bee hotels.
A bee hotel. Now that's a party I can get behind.
Right. And of course, the biggest tip for attracting wildlife, ditch those pesticides.
Keep it natural. It's better for the critters, better for us, better for the planet.
Exactly. It's all connected. And the best part about creating a wildlife-friendly backyard, it benefits everyone. You get to enjoy the sights and sounds of nature, and you're helping to support local ecosystems.
It's a win-win. I love that. It feels like we've covered so much ground in this part of our deep dive, from privacy and water features to lighting, and even inviting wildlife into our backyards. It's amazing to think about all the elements that go into creating a truly functional and enjoyable outdoor space.
It's a lot to take in, but hopefully it's giving you plenty to think about as you start planning your own backyard oasis.
It really gets you thinking about all the creative possibilities.
It really does. And, speaking of creativity, those sources highlighted a really cool concept I hadn't considered before. Borrowed scenery.
Borrowed scenery, like literally borrowing plants from your neighbor's yard when they're not looking.
Not exactly. It's more about incorporating elements from the surrounding landscape into your own backyard design.
So instead of trying to block everything out with a fence, you're actually embracing those views.
Exactly. It's about creating a sense of depth and expansiveness. Like, say you have a distant mountain view. Instead of hiding it, You might frame it with some trees, almost like it's a painting in your backyard.
I love that. It's like visually expanding your space without actually adding any square footage.
How clever.
What other tricks did they have up their sleeves?
They talked about using pathways to guide your eye. Instead of a straight shot from point A to point B, think meandering paths that curve and lead you on a bit of a visual journey.
It's like creating a sense of mystery and discovery right in your own backyard. Very cool. What about water features? Could those play a role in this borrowed scenery idea?
Absolutely. They talked about using ponds or streams to reflect the sky or surrounding trees. It creates this beautiful, ever-changing element that brings a sense of tranquility to the space.
It's like bringing a little piece of nature right into your backyard. And you know me, I'm all about those elements that promote a sense of calm and well-being. Speaking of which, did anyone talk about meditation gardens?
They did. And, it doesn't have to be anything overly complicated,
So we're not talking about building a full-blown Japanese tea garden.
unless that's your thing. But they emphasize that even a small corner of your backyard can become a meditation space. It's more about creating that sense of enclosure and tranquility.
So a place where you can escape the hustle and bustle, even if it's just for a few minutes. I like it.
Exactly. And they suggested incorporating elements that engage the senses. A water feature, some fragrant plants, a comfortable place to sit and just be present.
It's about creating a space where you can disconnect from the outside world and reconnect with yourself. So important these days. Okay, now for the big question, lawns. Love them or hate them, they always seem to be a hot topic. What did the sources have to say about lawns in the context of functional backyard design?
That's the thing, they didn't all agree. Some were all about that perfectly manicured lawn, while others were more focused on sustainable alternatives.
Ah, the great lawn debate rages on. So what were those alternatives?
They mentioned things like ground covers, low-growing plants like clover or thyme. They also talked about creating meadow-like areas with native grasses and wildflowers.
So instead of a sea of green, you've got this beautiful mix of textures and colors that's actually beneficial for the environment. Love it. What about those of us who aren't quite ready to say goodbye to our lawns completely?
Even then, they suggested maybe reducing the size of your lawn. Replace some of it with flower beds, trees, maybe some mulch pathways. It's about finding that balance.
It's about making your backyard work for you and your lifestyle, which I think is a perfect note to end on. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive into functional backyard design, from those big picture ideas like zoning and borrowed scenery to those smaller details like lighting and even choosing the right plants to attract those buzzing pollinator.
It's been quite a journey. But ultimately, the most important takeaway is that there's no right or wrong way to design a functional backyard. It's about creating a space that reflects your unique needs, your style, your vision.
It's about creating an outdoor space that brings you joy. And on that note, we'll leave you to start dreaming and scheming. Happy gardening, everyone.